What's the point of worship? What's the real reason that we come together to celebrate the Mass?
The goal is to look like Jesus. I really want to tell you what I've been trying to tell you for 2 days.
Mindfulness of audio levels.
Just give it some effort, would you?
There's something so beautiful to just remaining hidden in the heart of the Father.
If we've got to be exhausted, let's be exhausted for the kingdom.
We became Facebook friends.
I just want to tell people how awesome it is to be Catholic. There's so much freedom.
From St. Pius X Church in Fairfield, Connecticut, this is Roar Like the Lamb.
Hey everyone, welcome to Roar Like the Lamb. I'm Father Sam Kachuba, and Paola is away today. And while she is away, I have decided that I'm going to bring some people in to talk and to... we're just going to talk to some fun people. So for our very first guest in the history of Roar Like the Lamb, I am very happy to welcome my friend Samantha Kelly. Sam, it's great having you here. And I figured, for the first guest ever, it should be somebody that I share a name with, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm honored.
So, Sam, tell us first just a little bit about yourself and where you're coming from and your apostolic work.
Absolutely. So I am a Connecticut native, grew up in Simsbury, Connecticut, and then went on to play soccer at UConn. So much love for Connecticut. I now live outside of Philadelphia and work in a ministry that I started called Fierce Athlete. So it works primarily with female athletes promoting true identity and femininity.
Very cool. So how did you get to that place where you wanted to start Fierce Athlete? It didn't all just happen like straight from
No,
UConn, right?
No, it was a little bit of a journey. Yeah. So while I was at UConn, had a reversion back to the faith, was kind of caught up in the intense party sport lifestyle for a little bit. And then the Lord captivated my heart in adoration when I was at my lowest. And the fun thing about athletes is we're all in. So after encountering the Lord, it was like, okay, what do you want me to do, Lord? And so went on actually to become a missionary with FOCUS and Varsity Catholic for 5 years. That brought me to Texas, and then that brought me to Philadelphia, where I live now. And when I left FOCUS, I really just began to dream and dream with the Lord and ask him what he wanted me to do next. And the three things in my heart were theology, the body, femininity, and athletics. And I looked around, and there weren't any other Catholic or Christian apostolates speaking specifically to female athletes and the issues that they were dealing with, the issues that I was encountering on a daily basis as I was mentoring women. And so I heard the Lord very clearly, it wasn't my idea, say, I want you to start a nonprofit. So here we are 5 years later, and it's growing. It's going well.
That's so cool. I was looking at your website, and you've got not just the Fierce Athlete, the site itself that kind of promotes things, but you've got speaking engagements all over the place. You've got a podcast up and running. I've never listened to it, but I don't think you've ever listened to this one either, right?
No, I haven't. So there we go.
We're so even. It's great. But you're just the quality of the stuff that you've put out there it's really remarkable. And then you're doing these clinics for girls, sports clinics for them, where you tell us about what those clinics look like.
Yeah, so I think of it as kind of part retreat, part strength and conditioning clinic. So, I'm giving talks on things like identity, the female body, how to live out your faith in your sport. But then as athletes, we love practicals. And so I'll actually bring athletes through workouts. I have a certification in strength and conditioning, bring them through workouts, but with every workout we have a theme. So we focus on gratitude, or we focus on having a positive mindset. A lot of women in general struggle with just their mentality and things like that. So, or we'll focus on offering up. So I'm giving them practical, tangible ways that they can transform their play and ultimately elevate it to honor and worship the Lord.
That's awesome. All right, let's just change gears for a second. I want to go back in time.
Okay.
I met you while you were still a college student.
I was thinking about this morning. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Right? We've known each other for a long time. I met you as a college student while you were still playing soccer at UConn. And you had started discipleship with a FOCUS missionary at UConn. Yeah. And, by the time I met you, your reversion had already really happened, but you were still in that process of formation and growth. And I remember meeting you and just how excited you were about being Catholic, but not just being Catholic, like saying, I'm gonna live as an athlete on campus, as a witness for Christ. I want to give all my gifts, everything that I've got. I want to do this for the Lord. And there was that zeal of the newly converted. But it was always
it's good to be reminded of.
Yeah, but that zeal of the newly converted is so cool because I think in you, what I always saw is that it was very grounded. You were never like just off the wall crazy or anything.
Good.
But that time. So how long from your reversion to the faith as a college student to joining Focus as a missionary? How long? What was the time frame there?
It was 1.5 years, but it only took about 4 months for me to know that I was supposed to be a missionary. And that came actually at a point of surrender. So it's funny because, you meet the Lord and you think everything's going to be great. Like nothing bad's going to happen. Everything's going to be good. And then, I'm going to become captain, star of the soccer team. And then I ended up injuring my knee and needing a 4th knee surgery that spring. So like 3 months after meeting the Lord. And I guess about 4 months. That's what I'd say. But yeah. And so I was praying and I was just like, what the heck, God? I thought we were good. And it brought me to this point of surrender of just like, I can't control this. I was still trying to hold on and control my life and what I wanted. And it came, literally I was brought to my knees and in tears. And I couldn't really kneel because of my knee, but
brought to a knee, but not the other knee.
And I surrendered. And it was after that slowly that desire to become a missionary came into my heart. I let go of being a lawyer and working on Wall Street, all these big, plans I had for myself. And God, it's so beautiful because God used that injury. It was like blessing in disguise. It actually fixed my knee properly. So then I actually did play well after that and did become a captain and all that came, but it brought me to a beautiful point of surrender.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in other words, that was not a career-ending injury for you.
No. Mm-mm.
But it did push you in a different direction.
Yep.
All right. So once you joined Focus as a missionary, and you had started this new way of living. Now you're a Focus missionary. You're out of athletics. Where did you find yourself being drawn as a missionary? First of all, you were at University of Texas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So big time athletics department, big time sports school. That's who my heart was for, was the athlete, because they weren't easy to reach, but I wasn't easy to reach. And the missionary, who we both know, took the time and sacrificed for me and prayed for me, and believed in me. And so, I mentored a lot of different women when I was at University of Texas, but really my heart was with the athletes. So got to mentor some volleyball players and a couple other sports. It was hard, but it was beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then from your time as a missionary at Texas, you were what, 2 years, 3 years in Texas?
2.5. Yeah.
2.5. And then you continued working for Focus, but your role changed.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I became kind of the equivalent of a regional leader, if you will. So I oversaw 7 and then 8 campuses on the East Coast. So everywhere from Virginia all the way up to Massachusetts.
And this is where worlds collided again. Because one of the Focus missionaries that you supervised was none other than Paola Pena.
Paola!
Now, do you remember our car ride together? So you came here, this is maybe 6 years ago or so, or a little bit more than 6 years, right after I'd come back here as pastor. So we met here at St. Pius when I was the parochial vicar. And then you went off and did amazing things in Texas, and I kind of sat around and did nothing here.
Sounds about right. False.
And then when I was reassigned to St. Pius as pastor, you came and you gave a talk here. I don't know if you remember that. This is 6 years ago at least. You came here, you gave a talk. And I was driving you back to Villa Maria because you were staying with the Sisters of Life. And I was driving you back, and I remember just getting in the car and saying, "Hey, Sam, how angry are you with me for hiring Paola out of
Oh,
Focus?
I remember this. Yep.
Because the whole thing, and it was great that you were staying at the Sisters of Life, because it was at the Sisters of Life that I had offered Paola the job to come and work here.
Yep.
So you're talking to both of Paola's bosses right now. This
there
is
we
really
go. What can we say about Paola? I'm just kidding. She's amazing.
Yes, we can talk about her while she's not here.
Yeah, she doesn't know.
She's not going to listen to this.
Yeah, maybe not. So we're good.
All right. So then from your time in Focus, how did you come to that decision? All right, it's time for me to move on from this apostolic work. I mean, Focus is an incredible organization.
Yeah.
But it's obviously it's not something that you're going to stay in forever. And so at a certain point, it was time for you to move on. How did you realize that it was time to move on from Focus?
I think there were a couple different factors. One, I was just exhausted. I was traveling more than I was home. And two, I don't know. I think I came to realize that there was so much to the church. There's so many arms and there's so many apostolates and there's so much need, that I felt just kind of this calling forward, if you will. And I wrestled with that because I loved working with Focus. But I knew that I wasn't supposed to be in the role I was in anymore. And then it was either, do I take another role in Focus, or is it time to kind of move on? And I didn't want to move. I loved where I was, and had kind of found this new passion for theology of the body. And so I ended up actually going to work for the Theology of the Body Institute while I was forming Fierce on the side. So it all kind of worked out. The Lord, he often leads by our desires, and brought me in that direction.
Yeah. All right. Say something more about that right there. When you touch on how God will lead us by our desires, at a certain point, everybody's going to get to that place where I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. I just know that what I'm doing right now, it's time for me to move on, and I need to figure out what I'm supposed to do. I need to figure out where I'm supposed to go. How would you tell someone to begin that process of figuring it out? They understand that it's time to move, but they don't know where to go. How do you help them to take that step?
Sure. Some advice a friend gave me, and she said, I want you to dream with the Lord. Like, you could do anything, and it's not just like, okay, what's selfishly Sam's desire and what do I want to do? It's beyond that. It's like, okay, Lord, what's your dream for me? But then also, like, God is a God of passion. He's a God of desire. And so he plants in our hearts certain desires for things. I mean, obviously if they're ordered, but we have these passions, these gifts, these talents. And when I began to look at where God had brought me up into that point, everything I'd been through, from my upbringing to my reversion to being a college athlete, to then going and being a missionary and mentoring athletes, to encountering theology of the body, it all kind of converged into this call of, I need to merge all of these things and figure out how to use them.
So looking at those desires and those things that you were passionate about, you realized that the Lord wanted you to use it all.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's limitless. Yeah.
He really is. So when you were working for Theology of the Body Institute, were you pursuing a degree, certification?
Yep. Well, I was doing logistics for them and I went to all their courses. So it was like, I was just sitting and being formed, which was incredible. And at the same time, I was actually getting my master's in psychology. So, and then forming a nonprofit. So it was a little bit of a busy time.
You're just really slacking off there, Sam.
Yeah.
Could you work a little bit harder, please?
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing. All right. So you have a master's in psychology and you have founded a nonprofit. Now, let's get into Fierce Athlete then.
Yeah.
To begin, Fierce was just you. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you started Fierce Athlete, and how did you do it? How did you start this nonprofit and this apostolic work going out and trying to bring the gospel to female athletes?
I don't know. I mean, it's one small step at a time. It was so I was so naive. It's like, oh yeah, I'll start a nonprofit. And then it's like, oh, I need a board of directors. So I just asked my close friends, oh, I need bylaws. Oh, and every step of the way, the Lord would provide somebody, or I'd make a mistake and somebody would give advice. And over about 2 years, I knew the first thing was I had to get tax exempt status. Essentially, you got to handle the business side. So while that was happening, I really just got to chew on the why. Like, why am I doing this? Why is this important? What, Lord, do you want me to preach and teach? So before I really did any programming, I mean, it was speaking and all that and talking about it, but I was just kind of in prayer and receiving what God wanted and allowing it to form and talking about it. And then over time, you talk about it enough and people start getting interested, I guess. And I had a lot of contacts. And so when they heard I was doing, they're like, oh, I have this team. Would you come speak? Or, hey, would you come lead a retreat? And so things just kind of organically, with a lot of persistence, formed.
Yeah. So then after you've established this organization and you kind of learned on the fly.
Yeah.
You get out there and I was looking at the lists of talks that you have on your website, the things that you'll talk about. What are the big issues that you find you're addressing and that are genuinely rising to the surface for these women who are still in athletics, have finished their athletic career? What are the big things that you find you have to help people with the most?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes back to identity. You know, it's fun. Like our season 3 of our podcast right now, we're doing a You Are More Than series. So you are more than your performance. You are more than your mistakes and failures. You're more than your weight. You're more than whatever. Because all of us, well, not all of us, some of us have, I mean, we're not all perfect, but a lot of women, you know, it's I am an athlete. That's their core identity. And so when that doesn't go well, either injury or their career ends or they don't get playing time, there's a huge identity crisis. And they place their identity then in trying to control their eating, in their relationships, in other people's opinions of them. And so you see it all kind of spiral and manifest in different ways. But at the core of it all, they don't understand that their core identity is that they're a daughter of God and they're just loved as they are, not for what they do. And so you have to start there. You have to bring people to an encounter with their identity as a daughter of God and with God. And then you can kind of, from there, start talking about things like the female body and its purpose, which is, I mean, athletes are so in tune with their bodies, but have such a misunderstanding of the beauty of the human body. And then you can get into, okay, how do we live as women? You know, a lot of athletes are struggling with their femininity and not feeling feminine. So we talk about true femininity and then you can get in, as you go along, you get into some of the deeper issues that are within female athletics. I mean, there's rampant eating disorders. There's a lot of promiscuity, same-sex attraction. The whole transgender thing is kind of at the forefront of what's going on now too. So I saw it all coming, but it's interesting how God kind of asked me 5 years ago to start this. And now there's a lot of hot button issues surrounding what I'm doing.
Yeah. Wow. How do you navigate that kind of a minefield? I mean, I think you're far more on the front lines than even I am as a parish priest. You know, I'm a secular priest in the world, but pastorally speaking, these are still not major issues that come up. There's a certain amount of them, obviously, but your apostolate is kind of directly putting you in the world of sports, in direct contact with people who, as a kind of broadly and maybe too generally stated, tend to face these issues more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gosh, you know, I'm such a believer that we have to talk about things, you know, like and that's one of the reasons I started Fierce is I looked around and no other apostolate was like openly talking about these things. It's like, it's an issue. Like, why aren't we talking about it? Athletes are obviously encountering it. And I was encountering a lot of these things in college. And like, I feel like I had no resources. I had no voice of truth speaking into, what is right? What is wrong? Now you can't start there when you're in conversation with people. It has to use such gentleness, and everybody deserves to be loved. Right. So we have to, like, we did a podcast on same-sex attraction, for example, and it's so gentle. And you have to, it's rooted in truth, but you can't just come out guns blazing. You have to be gentle. You have to meet people where they're at. You have to learn their story. But then also not be afraid to say, you know, this is right and this is wrong, and to put your foot down at certain points. So it's a dance. It's a dance. Yeah.
You know, as you're talking about that not being afraid to say this is right and this is wrong, but still loving them. do you find that, I mean, to me, that sounds like coaching. That sounds like the best kind of coaching in athletics. You know, your best coach is the one who, you know, cares about you beyond the field or beyond the court, whatever it is, right? The coach who cares about your life outside of the sport, who at the same time isn't afraid to tell you that what you're doing on the field isn't right, isn't working. So let's correct it. Let's fix it.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, because they're not afraid to tell you the difference between right and wrong in the sport, they can also talk to you about other things that are really important. I mean, to me, that's just what you describe is it's coaching. It's meeting people with love, with genuine care for them. You want them to succeed. You're rooting for them.
Right.
Do you find that corresponds to kind of the heart of the athlete? That they need someone who's in their corner, but they also need someone who's ready to challenge them?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that's an awesome parallel that you just drew. Now, I will say, just like little disclaimer is, coaches today are really struggling because in a lot of settings, they're not allowed to say things anymore on a personal side. You know, I see a lot of college coaches, especially, very frustrated with, well, I have to preach tolerance and I have to preach experimentation, and I don't want to do that. And so some of that is being lost. And I think, you know, there are some younger generations now who don't take correction as well as I think maybe my generation did, but it's still, they need it, right? And so yeah.
I think you've identified some awesome needs, though. That question of identity, identifying almost too much with a sport. I am a soccer player, or I am this, whatever the game is, whatever the sport is, or that just the idea of being an athlete. And while there's I think a certain value to that, like it's a genuine characteristic. That's the real thing. There's no question there. But at a certain point, that has to change. I remember when I was a high school chaplain, one of my students was a star on the softball team. She was a star on the basketball team. And then senior year, some of her friends convinced her that she should play soccer. She'd never played soccer before in her life, or like the last time was when she was in second grade or something, and she was in the youth rec league or something. So she played soccer. She was a goalie. And I went to one of their games and she's in the goal. The game is happening. And she saw me walking by and she just ignored the game and started talking to me from the goal. And it was hysterical. I cracked up. But I remember talking to her after she graduated, and I was so happy that in spite of the fact that she was no longer playing sports, that thing that had formed such a huge part of her identity was still there. That she was still active, she was still athletic, she was still doing these things because it was good for her. It was something that she truly loved to do, but she was just no longer in the same level of competition that she had been previously.
Yeah.
I think about that a lot, that we need to stick with those things that we really love and that are really good for us, but without it becoming that all-consuming part of our identity. How do you help women navigate that?
That is that's a really tough transition. I'm actually creating, ideally this summer, an athlete transition course. So a course for women in transition, because it's such a pain point. I did a survey of like 30 former college and professional athletes, and some are 5-10 years out and they're still struggling with, how do I work out now? How do I eat? How do I just define myself, you know? And that's the reality, is we're daughters of God, but God has given us specific gifts and talents and things that bring us joy in life. And just on a basic level, working out is just good for us. Like I talk a lot about our bodies being a temple and us needing to care for them. And so it's shifting the mindset. And this took me a while. It was like, I didn't really want to play soccer anymore because it wasn't going to be at the level that I had been used to. Right. Or I wasn't at the level that I used to be. And so there was some frustration there. You have to kind of shift your mindset or find a new outlet. Like now I row, so I can still be competitive, but it's in something completely different. But I think it's finding the balance, and even just on like a physiological level, I deal with this a lot too. Like athletes, we're used to running on cortisol. Like we're used to intense workouts all the time, high stress environments. And when you transition out of that, that's actually like not sustaining, and so just learning to take a step back, to not work out 4 hours a day, to work out for 30 minutes to an hour, to let your body shift, learning how to eat well and differently, because you're not burning, 5,000 calories a day anymore. So
I don't think I've ever burned 5,000 calories in a day.
Yeah, maybe that's high. But I mean, not really. Like if you're working out for 4 hours. So yeah, it's all a dance, and and ultimately, yeah, it's our faith that roots us. So, but it's tough, but beautiful. Like I know we've been talking a lot about the negative sides of sports, but like you said, it teaches so many good virtues and so many good characteristics, like perseverance, teamwork, all these different things really carry into your careers afterwards, your family life, your faith life. So
yeah, how does Fierce take those good qualities and those good lessons that are learned through someone's athletic career and help them to apply them to the rest of their life? How does Fierce athlete make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, talking about it, equipping them, helping them realize. I mean, a lot of it's innate at this point with athletes. Like it's really fun working with athletes because when they get it and they run with it. They might be harder to reach, or they might be I'm just thinking about myself, hard-headed, stubborn, like all these things. But when your heart's captivated, it's like, I'm all in. And you pursue it like you would sport in a certain sense. It's like, yes, I need to pray daily. Yes, it's hard. Yes, I'm being stretched. But there's a lot of parallels there. And so even pointing out those parallels with athletes, like they know what it is to commit to something and to work at it. So, yeah.
Do you ever find that you have to teach them a new vocabulary? Like to give them a vocabulary that moves beyond just what they're used to in their sport, what they're used to in just the whole athletic arena, and kind of give them that vocabulary, like you said, captivated their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
To have a heart that's captivated. I mean, it would seem like you might have to teach them how to be in touch enough with their heart to recognize that they have been captivated.
Mm-hmm.
You get so focused on competing that the idea of being captivated seems like the opposite of what you want.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And, usually if I'm leading a retreat, the third talk I give is on the female heart. And so talking about how our hearts were designed, how as women we're receptive. But also I talk about eros, which is that passionate love that's burning inside our Lord. And it's the passionate love that's burning inside of us. And it's the desire for the true, the good, and the beautiful. And so defining that for them and then helping them realize you experience this eros when you are playing your sport, because it's something that you're passionate about. But it exists in so many other places. Like I think the things that I wish I had done differently is looked beyond soccer earlier. Like when I was done, I had a friend be like, I want you to go on a beauty quest. And I was like, oh, what? Like, what is that language? Like you just said, like, what is, but it was one of the greatest gifts because I realized there was more to life than just soccer. I started going to art museums and started listening to classical music and start just trying all these different things. And all of it ultimately is an encounter with beauty. It's an encounter with our Lord in those things. And so, yeah, it's almost like you broaden their horizons, and then help them get in tune with their own hearts and their own desires, and ultimately through that with the Lord.
I love it. Helping them get in touch with them. All right. One of the things that you do is these clinics, and you'll do those for kind of all ages, right?
Yeah, I've done middle school, high school, and college.
Okay. And first of all, I'm going to have you come here and do a clinic for the girls here at the parish. I've got a giant field, and
I know you do.
Yeah. Why haven't you invited me yet?
Yeah, come on.
We're going to make it happen. Post-pandemic, right? That's what we're living.
I know. Oh, I know. Things are opening up though, so it's
exactly. Good. We're gonna figure it out. In those clinics, what are you doing? What's the structure? What's the goal, and how does it all work?
Yeah, it depends if it's a 1-day thing or a 2-day thing. But usually it's we start with some sort of workout, and again introducing a theme or two depending within that workout, and then there will be a talk on identity, and then some small group time. It all depends kind of on the structure, but it kind of goes back and forth between some workout time where we're incorporating what we're learning into the workout, some talks, start with identity, then we look at the female body, and then we go to the female heart. And then if there's a second day or time for a fourth, we'll talk about some more practicals of how to be a witness with your faith on your team, especially like for me at UConn, there's a couple Christians who were sort of practicing their faith on my team, but I was really the only Catholic / person practicing their faith. So navigating some of that. And then we'll usually end the day with some sort of like fun competition, Okay. So, yeah.
Nice. Describe the intensity of the workout.
It's accessible to everybody, right?
Would I survive more than 20 minutes in one of those workouts?
I think you could.
I can see the doubt on your face,
with
Sam.
Everything, there's some modifications, so you could just modify. You have to do it. You have to do it.
I have to come and do one of the girl workouts with you.
Yeah. Get in some burpees. It'll be great.
Get super humiliated by a bunch of 6th grade girls who are better at all the workouts than I would be.
But 6th grade girls have so much energy. They'd probably be better than me too. Just run them around. Go. Sprint.
Just go. I love it. All right. Tell me your favorite athletic memory.
Oh.
That's a tough one, isn't it?
That's a really tough one.
Because we're going with a storied career. Because this goes back to before UConn. This goes to your high school years and
our high school years.
Yeah.
I was like I didn't say this back. I was like a 9-time state champ. I had 7 track championships. I was actually more highly recruited for track than I was soccer.
What was your event in track?
Hurdles and triple jump.
Hurdles.
I was yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do hurdles. I picture myself trying to run hurdles, and
I can picture that too.
Just immediately fall.
Getting annihilated.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd make it to the first hurdle. I think I would trip before I even got there. Forget actually jumping the hurdle.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know. My coach, he was a great coach. My best coach probably ever was my track coach. I had a great soccer coach too. I don't know. I have 2 in mind. So, soccer was where my heart was. I guess it was my junior year. No, was it my senior year? My junior year, we won a state championship with soccer. But the really fun part of that was I was a center back, so center defensive person, if you don't know soccer.
I don't.
And my sister was the goalie. So I kind of made it my mission to like protect her. Like this isn't the best story, but one time this girl kicked my sister in the face because my sister came down for a ball and she just kind of put her leg out and kicked my sister. So the ref went over to her. I went over to the girl who, I'm 6 feet tall. This girl's probably 5'2". And I literally picked her up off the ground by her shirt. And I said, if you touch the goalie again, I'm going to kill you. And shoved her. My mom witnessed the whole thing, literally off the ground. It was like adrenaline was pumping. But I've learned a little bit more virtue since then. But I loved playing with her. She was so good. And it was just a fun, it's why we won a state championship. Like, it was awesome. It was so fun. And then I had one game in college, I would say, after, I was going into my college career. I endured a 13-month knee injury. I was told I'd never play again. So my 5th year, I ended up taking a 5th year because I redshirted. I was back. I was captain, and I just played this stellar game. And in the game, I kind of had the realization, like, I've worked literally 4 years to get to this point, and it's such a joy to be a different player than I was because I'd been through so many injuries and needed a shoulder surgery. Like, I was a mess. But, I played like lights out. Like, I just played a really solid game. And yeah, it was just like, it was nice to see. And I had this girl on the other team who I knew. And so it was just kind of like I shut her down the whole game and I just felt great about it. So that was pretty fun.
I love it. So that was a game that it wasn't a championship.
Nope.
It was just a really good game.
Against a really good team.
But isn't that awesome how that's the thing that stands out? Like, it was meaningful, not because in the end you got something for it. You
No,
didn't
and I
get a
think we
trophy.
ended up losing, like, you know, in overtime. Like, it was just like a good, really hard fought game. And yeah.
I love it. I love it. Oh, that's so cool. All right. Then let's shift to the next great area of your accomplishments. What's your favorite story from FOCUS, from your time as a missionary with the Fellowship of Catholic University Students?
Oh, man. That's another really good question.
I told you this was going to be the hardest interview of your entire life.
Gosh, so many good moments. The moment that comes to mind was I worked with this volleyball player, Nicole, and she was the co-host of my podcast and is now married and has a little girl and is living her faith so beautifully. But when I met her, she was just like, I don't want anything to do with you. And I just went to all her games, and we ended up having hip surgery a month apart, same hip. It was like such a God thing. I just got to really offer it up for her and for her conversion, and through her suffering, like, really came to encounter the Lord and is just living beautifully. And that it was like 2 years of just loving on her for her to even open up. And but I knew God loved her and wanted her heart. And it's just beautiful to see, how he works.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, then, last one. In your time with Fierce Athlete, what do you see as the greatest thing that's happened so far, and what do you look forward to the most?
Yeah. I mean, my favorite things that happen are when individual hearts change, and grow. And I had this girl, Emily, who was my intern last summer, and she had 3 ACL tears, and so decided wasn't going to play anymore. So basically, she this was coming into college. So she was supposed to go to D1. She ended up at Ave Maria. I work with a lot of their sports teams down in Florida. Great school. If you're looking for a university, go there. So she decided just to coach, and I got to know the team and just walk with her through her faith and some struggles. And she just turned to me one day and she goes, I think I want to play. And I said, it was totally the Holy Spirit. I said, okay. I said, first of all, are you at peace with you could injure yourself again? And she's like, yes, I've thought through that. And I said, okay, I want you to come to Pennsylvania over the summer. I'm going to train you and get you ready, and you'll be my intern, and we'll try this thing out. So she came last summer, and we just got to grow spiritually together. It was just really beautiful to see God expand and challenge and grow her heart and her faith. And she just got awarded All-American and broke like every school record in one season at Ave. I've never, I mean, I've played against national team players. I've never seen anything like her.
Wow.
And just to see how, I got to like just pray over her knee and to see how beautifully it's working and how free she is. It was just, it's unreal, but it's all the Lord and all his power. And I just was gifted to be able to accompany her through that. And she's got one more season. Well, actually, she has like all this eligibility, but she's going to play another season. So we'll see. But it's a joy when I get to encounter women like that who are raw but want to pursue holiness and really run and be challenged, and that leads to really beautiful freedom. So
I love it. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
that is fantastic. All right, Sam, I love the work that you're doing.
Thanks,
for these women. It's so cool. And is it weird if I tell you that, like, I look at what you're doing and I look at what you've done from the time I met you as a college student, and I sit back and I'm like, I'm really proud of her. I'm like, it just happened though. I wasn't part of it. Like, I met you, but it wasn't me. Like, you did all this awesome stuff, and you've just done so many incredible things with your faith and just putting it into action and going out with that zeal. It's awesome to see. It's just beautiful to watch. So I'm really proud of you. I'm really grateful that you're doing this. How can people connect with your mission? How can they support Fierce Athlete? How can they benefit from Fierce Athlete? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I do want to add one more thing. First of all, thank you. It's like,
you're welcome.
It's crazy to look at what's happened. But I think people can look at that and be like, oh my gosh, she has everything together. And she is, yes, I'm driven and all that, but it's been a rocky road, and I'm not perfect, but I think when we're faithful, the Lord knows that. Like, he knows that you aren't perfect, but he still wants to use you and wants to transform your heart. And so, yeah, I mean, I look back and I'm like, how? I don't know, but I'm just really stubborn and persistent in the Lord, I think. So, he'll do amazing. Give him your yes. So that would be a little piece of advice I'd offer. Where you can find us, fierceathlete.org. All our information's on there. Social media at Fierce Athlete. Yeah.
Awesome.
Look us up. Listen to our podcast, Fierce Athlete Podcast.
You're going to take my listeners away, all tens of them.
No, we'll just we'll exchange some listeners. It'll be good.
There we go. That's awesome. That's so cool. Listen, Sam, thank you so much. I'm really grateful to have you. This is the Roar Like the Lamb podcast. I'm Father Sam Kachuba. This is Samantha Kelly. She's awesome. Check her out, fierceathlete.org. God bless you.